up, bud?
Hey, man. Oh, I think it's safe to say that we have both had an incredible day.
Oh yeah, it's been fantastic.
And trying to close the day out with a recording. Yeah, but we wanted to do this and get this content out there for you guys. So,
yep. And for us,
for you,
right? Yeah. Like this is a super beefy chapter, and we both live very full lives, so we're packing this in at a super late at night session, but it's totally worth it. Chapter 11. What is the name of this rule again?
Do not bother children when they are skateboarding.
It's a bit of a more abstract rule as far as the 12 rules are concerned, but there's a lot of good content in this one. It's certainly a beefy chapter, and we are going to glaze over a lot tonight because we like hanging out with you and we like hanging out together, but 3 hours, the sun will be coming up not too long after that, so sorry. We're this is a book club, right? So we're here to talk some points that we think were important, and we hope that you let us know what you thought was important in this chapter, because there's certainly a lot that we're not going to cover, but it's one of his more hot take chapters for sure. So there's plenty of content on YouTube and anywhere you want to look as far as his hot takes are concerned. So we want to dig into the other stuff, right? Like the things that we think will probably bring you the most value in your life, and we want to hear what you think about it. So that's what we're going to focus on. My notes start on page 287.
Hold on, before we get into the notes, like, do not bother children when they are skateboarding. Me and you were bothered while we were skateboarding in a couple places growing up,
Yeah. Which is ridiculous because I couldn't even do anything on my skateboard. So it's like, what am I going to damage?
Yeah.
Like, but
yeah, I remember, because we've had this conversation. I had a cousin who did a lot of skateboarding. It was really, really good for the time, and that was the majority of it, was just hanging out. But I never understood. I never understood what the problem was.
Yeah, it's got this, it's an image thing, right? And Peterson kind of goes over that, like in the early chapters. There are certain people that skateboard that don't do a whole lot else, and in fact are kind of counterproductive as far as societies are concerned. It sucks, but you get that people anywhere. It's just like the skaters are like in your face, right? Like the night crawlers you might not see, but skating during the day is most of the time a little bit better than skating at night. So I don't know.
Right.
It's definitely multi-generational stigma, What you drinking?
Water.
Atta
Being an
boy.
adult.
Attaboy.
Not skateboarding. Getting hurt, so I have to go to work.
One thing about when he was talking about skateboarding, he kind of dated that, right? Like he made it clear that, well, this wasn't any time in the past 20 years, because when he was talking about the kids board sliding, like they were reaching down and grabbing the board to do the board slide, and that is definitely an old school thing,
Yeah. He doesn't even go over like kick flips or ollieing to get up it. It's straight up grabbing the
Just
board and
board
jumping.
Yep.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that had to be way back in the day. Like that sounds like late 80s, early 90s to me.
Yeah. Yeah, way before. I mean, when we were growing up, it was Rodney Mullins was the street skater everybody wanted to be like. He was the
Oh
best.
my God, he was a
But
beast. Well, I'm sure he probably still is a beast, but like, and who was it? Daewoo Song or something like that was another really good
yes,
street
yeah,
skater. Yeah,
yeah.
those were the days, man. And that's basically all right. So what Peterson was getting at the beginning of the book, which is where my notes start, or the beginning of the chapter, is basically society's kind of like started to make things a little too safe, or not started to, like over time we always have. And the thing is, it's like when things become too safe, oftentimes humans find ways to make it dangerous again. So the quote I have from 287 is, people, including children, or people too after all, don't seek to minimize risk. They seek to optimize it. A little bit further. Thus, if things are made too safe, people start figuring out ways to make them dangerous again. And then a little bit further. Overprotected, when we fail, overprotected, we fail when something dangerous, unexpected, and full of opportunity suddenly makes its appearance, as it inevitably will. So think about that. Like, we can see that in the day-to-day, like my wife's car. We have a Honda Pilot. It's like the Elite. It's super nice. But the safety features drive me insane. Like, I've tried to turn off the lane assist and all that, but like, for instance, tonight on the ride home, there was like somebody clearly dropped a bucket of paint out of the back of the truck at some point. And so like, I'm driving over the now dry paint, and the car just freaks out. Like, oh my God, like, hit your brakes. I don't know what's happening. Basically, it thought like I was going off the road, even though it was just a puddle of paint. Like, there wasn't even any lines there to get confused on. But I don't know, man. That thing like has pushed me. Like, I've tried to give somebody room, like on the outside of the road or something like that, and the car will like try to push you back. And I guess I know I'm supposed to turn on the turn signal, but like, sometimes I just don't have time to like, think. I just want to move over. I don't know. That's my rant. I don't like Honda's safety protocol. It is overkill, but whatever.
It's the same way in the van. My family has a Toyota Sienna, and it has the same thing, the lane departure assist, and there's one or two other things, and we ultimately just turned it off.
I tried to turn it off, man. It wouldn't go off.
It's so simple in the Toyota. I don't know how to explain it. You just go to it in the menu. You can do it while you're driving, and it just turns off. And these back country roads that I drive on constantly, it has no idea what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But the main thing is though is just whenever we do have to get on the 4 lanes, if there's no one around, I'm not gonna turn my blinkers on. And I'm one of those drivers to where I look at my mirrors as much as I look ahead of me, because it's important to know if there's someone in a souped up Mustang GT coming up on your tail.
Yep.
And so I'm looking for those people, because I'm used to drive that way. Not in a nice car, just in my crappy truck, I'd fly. But so to me, it's like important to know, because that's a danger, especially when you have 2 kids and your pregnant wife in the car. So
he just kind of lied to you a little bit. We aren't going to go into the story tonight, but he should tell you the story about his Chevelle at some point. Yeah, he lied to you. But anyways,
we need to find the video of me and you in the 57.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, I don't always use, and so like just trying to do simple things.
Yeah.
It makes things hard.
You got to burn that blinker fluid, man.
Well, the problem that I have with blinkers, in certain situations, I'm not gonna go there. And most of the time, if you put a blinker on, people are going to suspect that you're going to hit your brakes soon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you're just not. So, like, I don't know. Anyway.
At least use your blinker when you're around somebody, please. Please.
Yeah.
But I hear you. I do the same thing. Like an empty road late at night. Like, come on, man. I'm not using my blinker. But anyways, let's get back to the quote from 287, because like I want to make sure we're clear here, because there's the obvious stuff like my wife's Honda Pilot, but this is really, really applicable to life in general. Like, let's go all the way back to the beginning of this book. Like, you got to be willing to take some risk sometimes. And that's what he's saying there. It's like, overprotected, we will fail when something dangerous, unexpected, and full of opportunity. You've got to be ready to move when that opportunity comes up, right? Like, I've seen countless friends kind of miss their shot and then become stagnant because it only comes around so often, right? Like, that's a big thing, is that I'm not telling you to be impulsive. Peterson's not telling you to be impulsive. It's be aware and ready to act, Anyways, again, this chapter touches on a lot of political stuff that I don't really care to get into. I have my own opinions. You have yours. We can talk about them, on these platforms, but we're not going to waste too much time on that with this, because there's so much content in this chapter as it is. With that said, though, do want to go through a little bit that was on 288 and 289. Like, on 288, he's talking about Jung, right? Like Carl, I think it's Carl Jung. I don't remember, but he's talking about Jung. And he's got a pretty good quote there, that was, kind of eye-opening a little bit, and like, immediately like I started doing some reflecting on like different situations I've, been a part of or witnessed over my life. 288, Jung believed that every act of social, and this is where my talk-to-text messes up, but I'm pretty sure social priority, was accompanied by its evil twin, the unconscious shadow. So, I mean, think about what he's saying there. Like, it's almost like the no good deed goes unpunished, but it's a little bit different. It's like, what is the ulterior motive there? Like, well, let's continue into it, because it's a perfect example, right? Like, basically, what he's tying it into is socialism, right? And on 289, he quotes, I think it was Orwell, right? What was the club that Orwell was writing for?
Oh shoot, a socialist publishing group, the Left Book Club.
Mm-hmm.
A socialist publishing group that released a select volume every month.
Yep. So this is my favorite part from that section. He concluded that the tweed-wearing, armchair philosophizing, victim-identifying, pity and contempt dispensing social reformer types frequently did not like the poor, as they claimed. Instead, they just hated the rich. They disguised their resentment and jealousy with piety, sanctimony, and self-righteousness. Things in the unconscious or on the social justice dispensing leftist front have not changed much today. I mean, that really messed me up. I mean, you think about like some of the figureheads that are socialists. Like, how are they millionaires? Like, is that not, like, if we're worried about the poor, which we should be, there's people that genuinely can't take care of themselves. I mean, bro, I am not a millionaire, and I do great, okay? So, if you're so worried about, like, totally just tearing down the current systems for a different system that cares about the poor, then why aren't you doing something in the meanwhile while you're doing that, I don't know. This is what I don't want to do. I don't want to get on my soapbox, but I really liked that quote.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep.
So,
I like the rest of that paragraph. Did you have another?
well, yeah. So there's one thing like I did want to go over. I wanted to talk to you all about because like I've had this idea that's been rattling around in my head, right? And like reading that, obviously you can see based on what I just said that I have certain opinions about this, and I want to present this idea to you. So in my industry, solar, like we can stand alone now, but let's be real. Like we needed what was ultimately tax credits to help us get started. It's called an investment tax credit. And so those, we've gone back and forth as a country as to whether or not we want to ramp them down. We started to ramp them down a few years ago. I think like 2017 they started going down. And the solar industry has been just fine, even with all the things that we've had thrown at us over the years. But it was super beneficial. And so, what is a win-win? Like the left wants to take care of the poor, right? The right wants to use common sense. The right also doesn't like to pay taxes, and I kind of get it. So, my dumb idea is like, okay, well let's create an ITC for these social programs. We don't have to become a socialist country or adopt these socialist practices necessarily. We don't have to like force it on every American, but let's say if you have this nonprofit that provides food or housing or financial assistance, whatever, people or corporations donate $1 to that nonprofit. That nonprofit, uses that money well, right? Like we should have some KPIs to monitor what these nonprofits are doing. You can't just burn money, right? But, this person, this entity donates this $1, they get $1 off their taxes. Why is that so hard? And I know like lost revenue for the government and all that, but like, yeah, I don't know. The IRS just got like a huge cash injection to audit us, basically. Don't need to get into that. That's not all it is, but that's part of it, right? But why not turn that resource inward and just find ways to like save money so we're not buying $10,000 toilet seats or buying a senator's Viagra, whatever. I want to get off my soapbox, but I tell me why that isn't a good idea. Why couldn't we do a dollar for dollar ITC tax credit to start taking care of some of these things that truly do need to be addressed? Like the left isn't necessarily wrong. I just don't think they're taking good approaches about it. Anyways, I just wanted to get that in front of you. Tell me why it's dumb. Tell me how we can improve it. Like it's important we have these conversations, right? Letting these figureheads talk for us is not working, right? We need to bring it back to our level and really start, coming up with some good grassroots ideas that truly benefit society as a whole. Anyways, that's all that. What did you have? You had the end of that paragraph, right?
Yeah, basically. So the bottom of 289. It is because of Freud, Jung, Nietzsche, and Orwell that I always wonder, what then do you stand against? Whenever I hear someone say too loudly, I stand for this. The question seems particularly relevant if the same someone is complaining, criticizing, or trying to change someone else's behavior.
Yep.
And I think about the people, that you see on the news, and all they want to do is say, they're on their soapbox. Otis, get off yours.
Yeah, I will get off mine now.
But they get on their soapbox and they only want to talk about the one topic. But nothing is ever just so one-sided that you can only, to me at least, nothing is ever so one-sided that you can't just say what you're for.
Yep.
I really think that's just the gist of what he's kind of saying. I'm very, very, I'm just skimming the surface. But that have the deeper conversation with someone, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And then, continuing on, he goes over something, and I'm kind of on the fence about even talking about it. And whenever I read it, you'll kind of see why, because Jordan Peterson here himself even says to kind of use it. You'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe it was Jung who developed the most surgically wicked of psychoanalytic dicta. If you cannot understand why someone did something, look at the consequences and infer the motivation. This is a psychological scalpel. It's not always a suitable instrument. It can cut too deeply or in the wrong places. It is perhaps a last resort option. Nonetheless, there are times when its application proves enlightening. I've been thinking about this a lot, because like at work, we have, as a nurse, we have programs or a program that we document in, and sometimes changes are made. Like this, an example. We have admission assessments that we have to do whenever we get new patients. And there's like 4 different things that we have to kind of go through with the patient. And someone decided to, and everything used to just like pop up and be like, hey, you have to complete this. Someone decided to make one of those things not pop up, and we have to go into a section of the chart that we rarely go to and click on a little box that's kind of hidden, and then you can get, and it's just like, why was this implemented? Because it's such an out of the way thing. And then you want to think about it as, oh, it's just to be another hassle for the nurses. And like, clearly that cannot be it. Right. But ultimately, that's what has happened. And more people are forgetting to do that, or more of the nurses across all the facilities are starting to miss that part of the admission, and it's one of those things that kind of can't be missed because it has some pretty important information. That's the section where we have to answer the questions. Have you thought about harming yourself? Have you thought about suicide in the last 2 weeks? Like, it's something that's very important that we have to go over.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, and in the nursing world, if you don't document it, it didn't happen. So,
in any world,
right?
That's a big one, guys. Like, I'm gonna continue to talk to you throughout the life of this channel about joining the trades, and what he just said right there is huge. Like, you cannot over document enough, and whether or not your boss wants you to document, you should, even if it's for your own records. Like, I don't care if you're digging a ditch. Today I dug from 600 feet to 900 feet down the trench line. We worked 7.5 hours in the trench, and I took a 30-minute break, and then I took my butt home. Write it down. Keep a log. I'm serious. Take photos. All right. That's a good one, man. Like, I'm glad he clarified, like, you can't use this at all times, but like, there are just some perplexing things that happen in life. And sometimes it's like, all right, well, what were the results? That's why they did it. Like, I had a I had a family member that needed another family member to take them to the doctor one day, and last minute, like, some crazy stuff happened. The person that was supposed to take the other person ended up like just going home, and it's like, well, why did that crazy stuff happen? I think that's a good application of this. Well, that person wasn't trying to spend that time at the doctor. That person was trying to go TF home, so I don't know. That's a useful one for sure. I have a lot of notes around this area, but this is where we're just not trying to get bogged down in every single thing in these chapters, because there's just so much there. And again, like, we want to hear from you. So that's all the more reason to like say, okay, let's touch on what we want to talk about, and we can talk with you about the things that, you know, you thought were important that maybe we didn't hit. The conversation doesn't stop here by any means. You know, this is the reason why you are seeing this right now is because, like, well, this is something that we wanted, right? Like, we both want to continue to grow and learn different things in all different avenues, right? Like, let's, like, basically, like, how would you want it, high school or college to go? What are some of the subjects that you wish you could have learned instead of like having to learn frickin' calculus 3 that you use so much in everyday life? So that's what we're doing here, you know. So just, you know, I want to skip forward. I think my next note is like page 297, which is super important. I think it's super useful for some self-inflection. Do you have anything between 289 and 297 that you want to discuss?
We're kind of skipping over Chris.
Yeah,
But
that's a good one.
That's okay.
Yeah, Chris. The story of Chris, man. It's you know, if you wanted to go to a dark place with this episode, we could do that. But it kind of sucks. And I'll tell you, I kind of identify with Chris to an extent, which is a little concerning. That was another one of those, you know, introspective type things where it's like, yeah, I kind of like think that same way a little bit, not as bad as him. Yeah, the Chris story is a rough one.
So I do want to kind of touch on it a little bit, because it's important. Because I think, I mean, I remember a stage in my teenage years where I was very anti-human.
Mm-hmm.
And by like a stage, I mean like 6 months. But that 6 months was so impactful that I kind of remember that now. But yeah, just focus on Chris for a personal.
Yeah.
You know. And
sorry to cut you off, King cut off. You're recognizing situations in your own life. You know, I identified with Chris's views on like Native Americans, right, or natives to North America. That's what I'm talking about. Not necessarily how off the rails he goes there, but it's a good story, and I wouldn't be surprised if you identify with certain aspects of like seeing people around you and the way they act. Still, though, what you just brought up ties into right what I was talking about on 297 or wanting to get into. Let me read this. This is 297. He's talking about. Here we go with the red flags. He's talking about the Columbine shooters again, namely Eric Harris. The direct quote from 297 is, for Eric Harris, the more literate of the two killers, human beings were a failed and corrupt species. Once a presupposition such as this is accepted, the inner logic will inevitably manifest itself. That one concerns me about me. Because, you know, guys, I like, you know, like-minded people, you know, and all that. What concerns me is like you turds watching the news all the time and letting it affect how you feel, you know, and really like I want to be on the ocean by myself with my family on a nice sailboat, you know, and like that is, I hate to say it, but just a desire to get away from society. And what he's getting at there is like those type of feelings can be dangerous if you let them run off the rails. I want to go be by myself, but think about Eric Harris. Like, inevitably he was picked on, that developed a hatred of certain people, which developed into a hatred of people, and then it just snowballed to the point of being like one of the most horrific things we've seen in our lifetime.
yeah, and I have those moments. I'm not gonna get into the situations, because they were just like kind of crappy situations. But I recently had that. I don't want to call it anti-human. I feel like when you're to the point to anti-human, it's and we get into it later on this page on 297, but where you're killing people. I don't think I've ever been quite there. That sounds like I might have been there. I've never been there. I've never wanted to kill anybody, but I do, and I feel like everybody does this. Is at some point in your life, you're just like, you know what? I'm just tired of people. People just cause problems. I need a break.
Yep.
And I had that happen about 2 weeks ago at work. I worked a Saturday and a Sunday, and Saturday we had to. We just had a difficult patient. Like I said, I don't want to get into it. And then Sunday I had that patient again, but then another patient was being very difficult. And by like difficult, I don't mean this was a sitter was involved, security was involved, 2 or 3 other nurses was involved, kind of thing. And you're just like, man, like you hate it for the patients, but it all revolves, and it's very easy for at least me to get into the mindset to where people suck. And you have to understand that, I think it applies to anywhere anything is involved. A couple of bad apples, right?
Yeah, that's like all right, racism, right? Like, that's not cool, bro. And I get it. Like, I grew up around a lot of people that were racist. I've had to work through some stuff myself. Like, I had a tough time with a certain family, that gave me a lot of crap in high school, and that may have manifested itself into some of these feelings that I had for a period of my life, and I had to recognize it, bro. It's not just because of like where their family came from. It's because these people just suck, and that's okay, to like not like certain behaviors and certain people, but you've got to recognize that it's not okay to write off an entire, group of people just because of a few people. I want to get that out there. It's not okay, man. Like, I'm not okay with that. Do not bring that stuff in here. Anyways, that kind of segues into another quote I have from 297, which is interesting, and I want to encourage you to look at your friends with this too, man. Like, here we go, 297 again. No one in the modern world may, without objection, express the opinion that the existence would be better. That existence would be better by the absence of Jews, blacks, Muslims, or Englishmen. Why, then, is it virtuous to propose that the planet might be better off if there were fewer people on it? I can't help but see a skeletal, grinning face, gleeful at the possibility of the apocalypse, hiding not so far behind such statements. That's a complicated subject. And we can see how far it goes with like China's one-child policy. Don't have to really get into that here. Obviously, like, I've made it pretty clear I don't want to mess with you, and I don't want you messing with me. So we don't have to get so deep in it. But let's look at the bigger picture. Like, it's not okay to develop these super hateful mentalities towards groups of people or people in general. Like, be solution oriented, not just a complainer, man. Come on.
Dag, son, solution oriented. that is a great 2 words there. Solution oriented.
Yep.
I was sitting here thinking about because like ultimately, you want to try to think about the positives and stuff like that. But any time nowadays, whenever I think about racism, I think the biggest two wars, the world wars were basically fought over racism. People don't really think about that anymore. But the Nazi that was all about we as a race is greater than everyone else, and the Jews were at the bottom.
Yeah. Along with various other people.
Right. But like I said, very briefly breezing over the top of it, but I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's what it ultimately boiled down to.
Yep.
You know, why carry on those kinds of thoughts? You know, I just kind of want to say, like, level up your thinking.
Yep.
Think higher.
Absolutely.
Be more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, be a better person tomorrow than what you are today.
That's why we're here.
So
All right.
simple.
I want to level with you. I took that in a place that I wanted to talk to you about something about. Where Peterson's taken this book, or this part of the book, is he's starting to get into some more of his hot topic, subjects, and that's fine. One of the things he talks about is like this view of masculinity and basically how society is trying to change that. And, Peterson's basically pushing back, saying, well, come on. Masculinity is not necessarily a bad thing. And, what he's getting at is like this view that men have been oppressing women, right? And I have a daughter on the way. I don't want my daughter to be oppressed. But I also think that things can be taken to the extremes, and that perhaps we're on a path of being a little too extreme. Peterson thinks that as well. And on 303, he presents this thought of like, okay, well, wait a minute now. Maybe it wasn't created out of oppression, right? Like, let me just read the quote. Here's an alternative theory. Throughout history, men and women both struggled terribly for freedom from the overwhelming horrors of privation and necessity. Women were often at a disadvantage during the struggle, as they had all the vulnerabilities of men, but with the extra reproductive burden and less physical strength. In addition to the filth, misery, disease, starvation, and cruelty and ignorance that characterized the lives of both sexes back before the 20th century, when even the Western world would typically exist on less than $1 a day in today's money. Women also had to put up with the serious practical inconvenience of menstruation, the high probability of unwanted pregnancy, the chance of death or serious damage during childbirth, and the burden of too many young children. Perhaps that is sufficient reason for the different legal and practical treatment of men and women that characterized most societies prior to the recent technological revolutions, including the invention of the birth control pill. At least such things might have been, or at least such things might be taken into account before the assumption that men tyrannize women is accepted as truism. Basically, what he's getting at is the different roles, right? Like, he's covered this in great detail throughout this book, how, men and women just, from a very prehistoric standpoint, we've always had different roles. We've always had to take care of different things. And I'm not saying that there aren't pieces of crap out there that beat their wives and won't let them talk to people and all this crazy stuff. That is out there. Like, let's be real. There is a problem to address, right? Still, I would say there is still a few D-bags out there that are absolute chauvinists. Like, that's the thing. But I think what people are missing, and I'm not necessarily saying you, because we're on chapter 11, so either you picked a random chapter to pick up with us, or you've gone through this thing, so I don't think you're missing it. But what I think people are missing is, like, Peterson's not saying, like, you're an idiot. He's saying, whoa, pump the brakes, you're going too far with this stuff. Like, and that's what we as societies tend to do. We swing hard one way, and then we slingshot back the other way. All he's really getting at here is like, all right, use some common sense, man. Men aren't just like these evil people. I love my family. I love the people around me. I want to take care of them. I want to keep them safe, and I want to provide the best possible experience I can. And I think you're probably like that too, right? Because again, either you picked a random chapter or you're going through this thing with us. Like, you've got things that you want to work on because you want to make life better for yourself and everybody around you. It's okay to be a dude. Basically, like that's all right. Be a man. It's okay. And I'm not saying that in a toxic way. I'm telling you to go to the doctor. I'm telling you if you need therapy, go get therapy. Like, don't worry about that stuff. I want you to have a meaningful life, but I also want you to be a freaking man because we need men in this world. Soapbox is out tonight, bro.
Well, I mean, it's. I feel like it's the exact point that a lot of people kind of miss. I don't agree. Like I said, we just had this discussion, and this is kind of exactly what it is. The anti-human, thought process, and then you want to say, racism is bad. You don't want to say that. That's a fact. Fact. Anti-human is bad. Fact. Racism is bad. Fact. Sexism is bad.
Yep.
Like, it's bad anywhere whatsoever. And I honestly feel like it's one of those things to where I saw something today, and it was a scrawny kid. I mean, 130, 140 pounds, and that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to bench press. I think it was 120 pounds, and it looks like the guy was bench pressing his own weight, but the comments were like, "Why would you post this? What?" Like, leave those thoughts to yourself.
That's like the things like getting on Reddit and seeing people talk crap about Peterson. Like, all right, bro, I get it. You don't agree with him. That's fine, but telling somebody to just not listen to Peterson is not the way to approach that. You can present the things that you don't like about it, but trying to shame somebody else out of trying to help themselves, that's what we're trying to do here, right? Like, we're trying to learn ways to improve our lives. So I find it utterly ridiculous that you would just automatically shut a person down, shame a person out of trying to help themselves. That's ridiculous. Stop it. What are you doing? All right. I want to go back just a little bit because I think this is a perfect time to say, okay, there are people that crap on Peterson, and I think they're ridiculous, but we have to be careful, okay? Like, we want to learn, and like typically, like, it's easy to gravitate towards like these popular figures such as Peterson, these thought leaders, if you will. But I just want to caution you, like, think for yourself, right? Like, it's easy to forget that Dr. Jordan Peterson is not like this thing. Dr. Jordan Peterson is a human that was born just like you, that had a childhood perhaps similar to yours in some ways, like that worked hard and got to a certain part or place in life, but like they're humans, and we're not right all the time. And so, like, just be aware of any logical fallacies that may exist. And I'm not saying this is necessarily this massive logical fallacy, but there's a point in this where he's like saying, basically the universities have, to summarize it as shortly as possible, driven men out of college, right? Like, he's saying, like, basically if you take X, Y, and Z out of the equation, men only account for 20% of students or something like that. And I don't think that's fair, right? Because, like, what he's taken out of the equation is the STEM programs. He himself in this book has talked about how, men gravitate more towards science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So to pull that out of the equation just to prop up your point isn't necessarily fair, in my opinion. Now, he's a professor. He's got a lot more, time spent thinking about this, but ultimately the point he's trying to make is it's a bad thing that men aren't going to college anymore. And I don't think that's true. I think you need to continuously learn I think you need to continuously push to have a good career that provides for you, your family, and provides a nice safety net. But I don't think you need to go to college to necessarily do that. If there's something at college that you really want to get into, that's fine. That's great. Do that. But, bro, I wouldn't give two craps if 100% of men got into trades. Like, I'll tell you, I basically had a full ride straight out of high school into college. I was going to be a doctor. Like, that was what I was setting out to do. And if I landed at, like, nurse practitioner or pharmacist or anything like that, that was going to be all right. That's what I was going to do. And that's because of, like, where we grew up, right, primarily. The successful people we grew up around, primarily, in my purview, it was the medical field. So that's what I knew I had to do, not really even knowing myself yet at that point, at the age of 18. I like to say I was like a closeted redneck. You know, like I didn't even know like how country I was at that point. I thought like I was basically a city slicker because I liked to play music and I wanted to be this musician, and like I thought it was really cool going into big cities, and it is. I do like going into cities every once in a while, but I'd rather be in the country. And I'm so grateful that I landed in a trade, and I'm going to show you like the things I do at my job and the places I get to go, and it's okay, man. Like, you don't necessarily have to go to college to have a good career. I went to college. I went to a lot of colleges, but I only graduated with an associate's degree, and I am very happy where I am in my life currently, and I still have plenty of room to grow. I don't know. I don't think it's as big of a deal as what Peterson was making it out to be in this chapter, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it. So 299 is where he talks about the situation in universities, so-called STEM programs. The female-male ratio is even more skewed. This is eliminating the so-called STEM. So here's the one of the full thoughts. Almost 80% of students majoring in the fields of healthcare, public administration, psychology, and education. Yep, thanks public schools. Psychology and education, which comprise 1/4 of all degrees, are females. 80% of students are female. You know, excluding the STEM. And he specifically says healthcare. I am a registered nurse. I can think off the top of my head, out of all the nurses in our hospital, and I'm at a very small hospital. I chose not to go to a large one. I did that. I don't like it. I like the small scale. 5, 6 men that are nurses. Okay. Against all the females. I could easily sit here and name, I can say, think of 60 to 70 nurses that are female across all the departments. Across all the departments, 7. There's one in ICU. I can think of 7 total men. And that's just nurses. But then I think about the doctors.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking about the hospitalist. I'm thinking about the surgeons. And I would include the nurse practitioners, and I'll kind of get into this, but you know that this is the part that isn't, specified in what he said there. I think about the doctors, hospitalists, the surgeons, and all their different. Like we have, this is kind of how specialties work. We have 2 urologists, we have 1 nephrologist, we have 8 to 12 cardiologists. I can think of 1, 2, 3, 4 doctors that are female versus the I could easily go 25 to 30 doctors. Yeah, including emergency department. If I'm including OB, that's 2 more female doctors. I'll say three more female doctors. But still, it's very skewed towards men when you look at doctors. It's the complete opposite of nursing.
Yeah.
And those numbers wouldn't. I don't think they're would be accurately recommended on a very broad scale.
Yeah, he's just looking at number of people under a certain sex in a profession. And what I, while you were telling us that, what I also thought about is, like, to be fair to Peterson, like, think about this. Like, he's having to confront these people that have very, very different views than him. So, he is looking for facts to say, well, wait a minute, hold on now, like, I don't know. I've got to give him a little bit. Like, he's got a much different point of view than I do.
There's also that he says universities, and I don't know if community college is involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, but that's the things that you kind of have to think of. Because I went to community college.
Yep.
Try to university was not my thing.
Yep. Same here.
And at RN, you can go to a university and you can get your RN, but in order to get a BSN, which literally, if I were to get a BSN at the hospital I'm at, it does not come with a pay raise. Like it is, but it's like minuscule. It's a quarter.
It's not worth
something like that. It's not worth it. But yeah, that's the thought process that's also going here. It's all that.
Hey,
and of course that's just healthcare.
I would, talking about creating, good lives and good careers for yourself. Like, nurses do well. Traveling nurses crush it. And I'm telling you, like, you can pick where you want to go, kinda. You can go to some cool places in the world and work as a traveling nurse, and you can make a killing doing it. And you can do that with an associate's degree. Okay? Like, don't buy into the pressure of going to some university, man. If that's something you want to do, great. If you can see a path forward to a great career, perfect, do it. But you don't have to. And quite frankly, like, I'm much more grateful for the life that I experienced not going to a university. It wasn't an easy road, but I'm more grateful for those experiences. I think, life at a university would have been a little too sterile. So, I was saying, like, all right, let me be fair to Peterson. He's got to like, fight some of these pretty extreme fights with. I mean, he gets paid for it. Don't get me wrong, but he goes on these shows and has to fight all these crazy fights with all these people, right? And so, like, obviously he's trying, in the grand scheme of things, he's trying to say, wait a minute now, like, these socialist programs that are being introduced sound great, but they can snowball, right? And so he's trying to, like, make sure we understand where that can go to. Don't want to get in that here a whole lot. He talks about communism a good bit in this chapter. I think we're pretty much going to glaze over the most of it, but, like, man, on 308, he tells us about the kulaks of the Soviet Union. And I want to at least, read you a little bit from page 308, because, like, again, it's important for us to have these conversations and talk these things out, and not just listen to what the figureheads on the TV or on the computer screen or phone screen are saying, like, because they're not telling you stuff like this, right? Like, page 308, from the communist viewpoint, these kulaks, which are apparently the wealthiest of the peasants, right? Which is a little hard to understand. I assume maybe that's kind of like a middle class or a lower middle class. Like, I don't know. They have property, right? So they might not be wealthy, but they weren't the worst of the worst. Anyways,
I'm trying to see exactly where he kind of defines them as, but basically, this is it right here. Soviets sent 2 million kulaks, which were their richest peasants, to Siberia. Kulaks, these with a small number of cows, a couple of hired hands, or a few acres more than was typical. So it's not even really like upper class. I mean, it's not even really like middle class. It's just these are the poorest of the poor, and these people just have a little bit more.
So, all right. From the communist viewpoint, these kulaks had gathered their wealth by plundering those around them and deserved their fate. Wealth signified oppression, and private property was theft. It was time for some equity. More than 30,000 kulaks were shot on the spot. Like, basically, if I understand correctly, like, there was like this revolution type moment in which, like, you know, these commissioners, you know, gathered a group of people and sent them out and said, hey, F them up, you know. And so Peterson goes into pretty decent detail for a short summary of what happens. I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit. The parasitical kulaks were, in general, the most skillful and hardworking of farmers. A small minority of people are responsible for the most production in any field, and farming proved no different. Agricultural output crashed. What little remained was taken by force out of the countryside and into the cities. Rural people who went out into the fields after the harvest to glean single grains of wheat for their hungry families risked execution. Think about what's like happening and with the farmers. What was it? It's in Canada. Like they've banned fertilizer or something like that. And there's something going on, I think, in the Netherlands right now. Hey, 1 second. This might not be over, but yeah, oh boy. Hopefully she goes back to bed. Sorry, we had some technical difficulties here. So I'm gonna try to edit it. We'll see how it goes, but I'm gonna pick back up because I basically know where I was. So I'm going to start over with the quote. The parasitical kulaks were, in general, the most skillful and hardworking farmers. A small minority of people were responsible for the most production in any field, and farming proved no different. Agriculture crashed. What little remained was taken by force out of the countryside and into the cities. Rural people went out of their way, or rural people who went out into the fields after the harvest to glean single grains of wheat for their hungry families risked execution. Basically, you know, you think about what's happening with farmers today, and it's like, okay, there is a reason why Peterson has to get into these uncomfortable conversations with these people, because they are pushing the types of things that are quite literally like situations that we've seen go horribly wrong in the not too distant past. It's crazy to think about, man. I highly recommend, you know, reading this book, reading this chapter, and you know, some of the stuff that he presents about, you know, particularly the Soviet Union is just astounding. We really don't get the kind of exposure to that history quite like we do some others, and it's kind of horrific, man.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it now. Some of the things that I'm trying to remember what country it was, but this exact thing actually just kind of happened recently. One of the African places, Nigeria, I don't know, but basically this just happened. Someone in power decided that he didn't like, and now that, like, keep in mind, I'm reading this from, I'm talking about this from a standpoint to where I read this a couple of months ago or whatever. It's probably longer than that. It's probably 2 or 3 years. But basically kicked out all the farmers who just so happened to be a different color than him. And yeah, people started starving to death, and then very quickly, within like 1 to 2 seasons, begging them to come back, and having to give them all these incentives to come back and farm their land. So I mean, it's still going on today. History does repeat itself.
Yes.
And like what you're talking about, the one thing I can think of is there's another nation that is starting to ban certain pesticides because it's harmful to bees.
Yep.
And bees are very important.
Yes.
And I think this is just something even me that because I'm a farmer. I don't farm a lot. I have 3 acres, but something that I think about is whenever I spray pesticides, how many bees am I about to kill? And it's one of those things to where you either get up early enough before the bees are moving and spray your plants, or you wait until the sun has gone down or about to go down, because bees need to make their way back, and you spray them when it's safe for the bees. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going on, not just politically, but also just in the farming industry itself that's kind of going crazy. So
yep. Have you ever seen the video of somebody turning the lights off with some bees flying around?
Mm-mm.
Oh man, give me 1 second. I'm gonna, guys, I have a very old computer that I've really taxed, but I want to show you this one. It's pretty cool. Let's see. I'm almost there. Come on, computer. Come on, computer. It just locked up. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're still live.
Okay. I'm glad it is on your end, because I can't see anything over here. Oh, wait, almost there. Oh, I don't want to show that because it shows my other account.
Just edit it out, blur it out, and post.
Yeah.
Do an incognito window. Copy the link, open an incognito window.
Oh no, I was talking about my other Reddit account. I'm on Reddit right now.
Oh, I got you.
Come on. Alright, so we're going to have to edit some out.
That's fine.
I've already got to edit anyways.
Yeah, I do want to go back and talk about one thing just very, very quickly.
Okay.
We were talking about Orwell.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we actually read the name of the book that he wrote. Where you read that? But Orwell wrote The Road to Wigan Pier.
Yeah, that sounds like one that I'll probably want to read at some point.
Yeah, talking about Wigan Pier coal miners and how bad they are.
Oh, Reddit won't let you share screen? Can you see this? Is it loading at all?
Yeah. Yep, it's up. Yep.
Yes. Alright. Boom.
Oh yeah, they just land.
Isn't that crazy? Mm-hmm.
Huh.
They won't fly at night. Think about it. When have you ever seen a fleet?
Well,
a bee
I will tell you
in the middle of
because
the night?
I was picking okra by 100% dark while I'm using my night sight today.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no bees.
Yep.
But there was stink bugs, which is there was stink bugs, and there was mosquitoes just getting eat up. Actually, whenever I laid down with my kids to get them to sleep, I kept touching my forehead, and it's right there. And I was like, God, I hope that doesn't show up tonight when we're recording. And luckily, I don't think you can really see it, but whatever. Like, got a bumpy forehead anyway. Whatever.
It's
It's fine.
I was told it was supposed to go away when we got older, but I still deal with skin issues myself a little bit. All right, sorry to take us on way off track with the B video. I just that was a little that lives rent free in my head, so now it's going to live rent free in yours. But to get back on subject, we can jump forward a little bit again in the interest of not, bogging us down in this content. Again, tell us what you want to talk about. I could jump up to like page 327, where he gets into something that I really identify with. But basically, again, like what Peterson's talking about is this men versus women, this us versus them type mentality. And he basically, at one point, he even suggests like pushing men to be more feminine actually makes them more fascist. And I found that really interesting because, like, I can totally see some of the more feminine, guys that I've been around, like, totally being little fascists themselves, for sure. Like, this, it's, I'm right about everything, it's my way or it's wrong type people, for sure. But 327, he talks about, like, working on the railway. When he was young, he basically worked on the rails, right? And like he describes this kind of stereotypical like blue collar work environment where the boys talk crap and we do talk crap, and it's fun if you can take it. The thing is, it's like you're your brother's keeper. There's dudes I know that have that tattooed on their body. Like, we look out for each other, but we give each other a lot of crap. And part of that is making the job fun. Part of that is testing the person out, though, and seeing how the person's going to react under social pressures. And in my line of work, that gives you an idea of like, okay, well, if something blows up, is this dude going to be somebody that stays cool and like makes the situation safe, or is this somebody that just kind of like loses their shit under pressure? And so he tells this story of this one dude that rolls in, and old dude's the protocol, unspoken protocol on the line was just use a brown paper bag for your lunch. An old dude rolled in with his Yeti 46 and like totally stuck out. Now basically he like Peterson all but said he rolled in with his purse, more or less. Like it looked like his wife was packing it for him every day. So he got the nickname Lunchbox, and the old dude didn't take that very well. He didn't take jokes very well in general. And like, well, that didn't mean the guys were going to stop, I'm telling you this story because I want you to recognize that if you're one of those types that doesn't like take a joke well, like, you might want to figure out some way to work by yourself completely. I don't know, because like, that's a part of figuring things out, right? And so these dudes were like, all right, well, if you can't take a joke, we don't want you here. I'm not saying they said that. I'm saying, like, that's just kind of how the mentality goes. And so, like, it's either get with it or move, right? So the jokes get worse and worse, and it gets to the point where, like, they're tossing pebbles. And, bro, I've tossed plenty of pebbles at coworkers for fun. It is the most satisfying sound when you hit somebody on the hard hat with a pebble. It's not a big deal, right? We laugh it off. They throw one back at me. We're good. This dude would get super flustered about it, right? So the rocks obviously have to get bigger. If dude's like reacting that way with the small pebble, throw a bigger rock and see what happens there. That escalates to the point where old dude just never comes back one day. And good riddance. I know that type of person, and it is such a relief when you show up to work for the second, or no, it's no call, no show, you're out of there, typically, right? So you show up to work, old dude's late, he's late. Oh, I don't think he's coming. So I dragged that out to get to this direct quote from, I think, 328. Men enforce a code of behavior on each other when working together. Do your work, pull your weight, stay awake and pay attention. Don't whine. That's a big one. or be touchy. I kind of suck at that sometimes. Stand up for your friends. Don't suck up and don't snitch. Don't be a slave to stupid rules. I'm kind of bad at that one, meaning like I think a lot of things are stupid, so I don't do them. But I'm doing okay, I guess. Don't be a slave to stupid rules. Don't, in the immortal words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, be a girly man. Don't be dependent at all, ever, period. The harassment that is part of acceptance on a work crew is a test. Are you tough, entertaining, competent, and reliable? If not, go away. Simple as that. We don't want to put up with your narcissism, and we don't want to do your work. That's so true. So true. Guys, pull your weight and don't complain about it. Like, especially like if you're in the trades, we're all out there together trying to get the job done. The goal is to get the project done on time and on budget, if not under budget. That's it. That's what we're all doing. So I don't want to hear you complain about it, and I don't want to see you slacking off. You know, like you might not be feeling well that day, but you've got to remember the effect of you not pulling weight has on the people around you. And you will not get anywhere in your career if you're not pulling your weight. Full stop.
I have a quick two little things here. We didn't plant a whole lot, but we just got done with peanuts, and we pull the bushes out of the ground ourselves. And we pick them off the bush by hand into a 5-gallon bucket, and I sell half bushels and bushels, nothing in between. But kind of the thing is we pull the bush. We have a blade. We plow them out. That way it's easier to get the anyway, we plow them out. We put the bushes. Oh my God, my brain. We plow them out. We put the bushes on a trailer, and we do most of this in the evening as much as we possibly can. Because I take the orders the day before. You're not going to call me the day of and be like, hey, do you have an extra bushel? No, I'll get it for you tomorrow. That's just small town. We did 10 rows of peanuts. That's it. And me and Mom were picking off peanuts, and we're just like kind of talking and everything. And then around 10 o'clock gets there, and we've not finished picking all the peanuts off the bushes. But she's like, hey, you need to start looking and seeing how many bushels you have, and guessing how many bushels you have left on the trailer. So if we need to pick up more bushes, we can do it now and not do it in the heat of the day, which makes sense. But I'm one of those, let's finish what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But it just gets to be one of those things to where at some point we have to get in the field and we have to pull up the bushes. That's the hard part, right? That's the back-breaking labor. I won't say back-breaking, back-hurting. But Mom does her best not to complain. But if the breeze stops, I not only feel it, but I have to hear about it. Kind of thing.
Yep.
And like, please, dear God, I can't say anything because it's my mom. But don't speak it into existence because it's 10 times worse on me then.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Whereas when Dad gets there, my dad gets up at 2:30 every morning. So for him to even get out in the field after when he gets home, I'm like, you don't do that. Just go home and get some rest. But that's not my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So Dad gets in the field, nothing gets said. We sit there and we make fun at each other the entire time, and it's rewarding.
Yep.
To be able to do that. We do the same thing at work, and it just dawned on me that we do this in the hospital as nurses. One of the other guys that I work with, he's one of my best friends. We hunt and fish together, but he is a total prankster at work. And there's 2 or 3 of the women that we work with that are total pranksters. They leave me out of it a lot, just because it does get on my nerves when I have an aggravating patient that's calling for pain medication every 2 hours, and I go to grab my cart, and there's places that you grab your cart. You go to grab your cart, and on the back side of your handle, someone has strategically placed either KY jelly or toothpaste. And I'm like that. I have a switch, and if it gets flicked,
That's pretty funny, though.
I'm getting revenge.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not getting even. I'm getting revenge. And so like a lot of people have learned, like unless if you play a prank on Zach, do something simple. That's not a heartache. We've had a couple of people open their locker doors and everything fall out of their lockers, kind of deals.
That's awesome.
And that's a big bummer when you're trying to get out of the hospital because you're at the end of the shift. So
yeah. One thing that you said there a minute ago, like, I'll tell you, working in solar, you're gonna be in the heat, and there's not much that will make me lose at least a little bit of respect for you than complaining about it being hot. Like you talk about having a switch. Like, as soon as somebody complains about it being hot, a switch goes off in my head, and you are now a different person. Because it's like, all right, bro, nobody like forced you to work in solar. Shut up. Like, now I'm thinking about it's hot, and like, I already knew that. I didn't need you to bring that up. Like, there's plenty of other things we can talk about. And the don't be a girly man thing that he says there, that can be kind of taken out of context, and just want to point out your story there. I don't think you did it intentionally, but like, that's exactly what he's saying. Like, there's females communicate a lot more than men, right? And part of that comes out as complaints, right? And with especially like working in trades, like, there's plenty to complain about, but please don't, so I don't have to think about it.
I think there's a difference between complaining about the work environment and then complaining about the stupid laws that are all of a sudden being enforced on the job site. And that's one of the things where they have a rule right now to where if you are not vaccinated against COVID, you have to wear safety goggles everywhere in the hospital. But if you are vaccinated, you only have to wear the safety goggles in patient rooms. I think that rule lasted all of about 4 hours. Regardless if you are vaccinated or not, I'm pretty sure we all just set it down, and there was 2 people walking around with goggles, and our boss kind of walked out on the floor and saw nobody was doing it, and she would just like go to the ones that she knew, because she doesn't want to get in trouble too, right?
Yep.
Like, regardless of how she feels about the law, her job is to enforce that law, right? And I'm calling it a law, but it's whatever. But yeah, just stupid, and it's all like, so we don't get COVID through our eyeballs. Like, shut up.
God almighty.
Someone is sitting at a desk and is trying to decide, how do I keep my workers working so I keep making money? It's not about, it's one of those things to where you kind of have to think about what the outcome of that action was in order to infer the motivation.
That's a good one.
And it's,
if I'm going to pay you a salary, you better do everything you possibly can to keep yourself safe if you're not going to do what I told you to do. So now you get to wear goggles around all the time. I can totally see how, yeah, absolutely. I need you to keep working because I'm paying you money. So don't screw this up. I can see that.
But God forbid, you have to use PTO time or sick time.
Yeah, you guys are heavily understaffed, so I could see
everywhere.
Management freaking out every time you go to take PTO.
I know, I've had a couple of people tell me that they went to such and such a hospital, but they couldn't be admitted because they said the hospital was full. And I'm like, yeah, it's not because the hospital's full. It's because there are no nurses. And it goes back to what you were just talking about. Do your work. Pull your weight. Stay awake. Pay attention. Don't be whiny or touchy. Being a nurse is hard work. Yes, I'm in an air-conditioned building.
No,
but just dealing with
oh my
patients.
God, I would never want to have to deal with the crap you have to deal with.
And not everything is hard, but it's like I was talking to one of the older nurses the other day, and she said that when she started working she worked on a post-surgical unit, and basically the surgeons would do all the surgeries one day, and this was back in the day, so everyone got a Foley catheter. And the doctors would go in the morning at 6 o'clock and put in their orders to discontinue all the Foleys on all 10 or 12 patients that nurse would have. And all the Foleys would have to be pulled by 9 o'clock. So she gets there at 7:30. She finishes getting reports. She's got an hour and a half to pull 12 Foleys. And she was like, Zach, like I think about it, and that was hard. Like that was a very time-consuming thing. And if one thing happened, and I wasn't able to get those Foleys out in time, then like that's what happened. She said, she said I never really got in trouble for it or anything. But I think about it, and stuff like that is what's made me as strong of a nurse as I am, because it teaches you to quickly assess patients. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things to where when you walk into a patient's room, the doctor hasn't seen that patient for that day. It's your job to assess that patient and say, is this patient getting worse? Or is this patient getting better? Is this patient getting the same? Do I need to call the doctor and have the doctor come look at this patient right now? Because obviously something isn't working. But yeah, just in all aspects of life, I would say that's kind of the thing that you would want to do for. You don't always want to pick the easiest assignment.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Challenge yourself, for sure.
It's one of those things, going to the gym. Do you go to the gym just when on the days that you feel good, or do you still go to the gym on the days that, I did arms yesterday and my arms are just noodles, and I know I can go and do leg day today, because you don't skip leg day, do you? Nah,
never.
You don't. But I could go and do leg day today, but I'm not, because my arms hurt so bad. Just go do leg day.
Yep.
Do a 12-minute workout.
Yep.
Be done.
Absolutely. All right. I again, a lot to go over in this chapter. It is.
I think we're towards the.
Yeah, we're well into the morning hour now, and we could keep digging on this thing, but guys, basically what I want to do is I want to read one of the last paragraphs of this chapter. It's applicable to all of us. It's certainly applicable to you guys that are single, but. Yeah, basically towards the end of the chapter, he's talking about, what a woman looks for in a mate, right? And, it's applicable to you single guys out there, but just make sure you're paying attention to what he's saying here, because it's about all of us, right? Like, we could probably all improve in some ways. And I think this is from, like, page 332, 333, something like that. If they're healthy, women don't want boys. They want men. They want someone to contend with, someone to grapple with. If they're tough, they want someone tougher. If they're smart, they want someone smarter. They desire someone who brings to the table something they can't already provide. This often makes it hard for tough, smart, attractive women to find mates. There just aren't that many men around who can outclass them enough to be considered desirable, who are confidence, intelligence, dominance, and social position. The spirit that interferes when boys are trying to become men is therefore no more friend to woman than it is to man. It will object as I can't say this word, bro. Vociferously and self-righteously. You can't do it. It's too dangerous. When little girls try to stand on their own 2 feet, it negates consciousness. It's anti-human, desirous of failure, jealous, resentful, and destructive. No one truly on the side of humanity would ally him or herself with such a thing. No one aiming at moving up would allow him or herself to be possessed by such a thing. And if you think tough men are dangerous, wait until you see what weak men are capable of. It's that cycle. Strong men make good times. Good times make weak men. Weak men make bad times. Bad times make strong men. We are approaching the bad times, my friend. It's time to man up, bro.
I'm hoping we're already in it and it doesn't get much worse.
Well, it's up to us, right? It's up to us to right. Have these conversations and, really be honest with ourselves, right? Like, there's 1,000 different things I can improve upon, right? But I've got to take the time to not only recognize those problems, but be honest with myself and where I'm failing, and not only identify that part, but identify the solutions and follow through on it. Bro, time is not going to slow down. It's only going to move faster. The older you get, the faster time moves. I mean, it's basic math, right? Like, you've got more minutes under your belt, right? So therefore, every minute you add to the pot, it's just a little bit smaller in the grand scheme of things. So whereas you might have been able to sit idle a decade ago, you're not afforded the same opportunity anymore. You've got to, not only identify these things that you want to work on, but actually act on them. That's why we're here, right? Like, can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. Let's try something different. Okay, well, this sounds fun, and I think we're going to benefit from it. Let's do it. Bro, I am burnt. You got something for it?
Yeah, just real quick. I was just thinking about it, and I was like, all this sounds really, really good, but the hard thing, is where do you start? Doing these things. How do you improve?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember what chapter it was. I'm pretty sure it was Rule 1 and Rule 2. But this chapter really does. It goes back and pulls a lot of the chapters back into it. That's one of the things that makes it so thick.
Yep.
This chapter is like oatmeal.
It's 2C thick.
We're just touching.
Huh? It says 2C thick. It's like oatmeal. 2C thick. That's just the way I like it.
I was gonna say it's like oatmeal, and when you cool oatmeal by blowing on it, it's so thick it only cools the surface, and that's all we've touched is the surface.
That's a good one.
But you start with the simple things, and then it's consistency. You consistently do those simple things, So, but yeah, don't bother kids while they're skateboarding. That's it. I don't have anything. No more conversation. There's a lot of conversation, but we're not. I'm not doing it.
Girl, you're thicker than a bowl of oatmeal. All right, yeah. You know what? I think next week's going to be a really good chapter too. It's another abstract chapter. Can you tell us what chapter 12, Rule 12, is called?
Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. I'm a dog man. That's my first initial. I'd rather pet the dog.
Yeah.
So we're gonna figure it out.
Yep. It's gonna be a good one. All right. Well, guys, I appreciate you hanging out with us. I appreciate you doing this with me, and we will see you again next week. See ya. Explosion.